informal and social, so we should be informal and social. So how's it going, folks? Have we got any actual external punters as yet?
Yes, they're just coming in now. Loads of them.
Oh, wow, fantastic.
2 Daryls.
2 Daryls. Does that mean Daryl's got 2 cameras? Now, this is the only problem. I can't see the long list of people who are here. I can just see little dots on them. I used to be long-sighted, but I'm not
I put my contacts in the first time 3 months as well.
I took my Ugg boots off for the first time 3 months. Well, welcome, folks. It's great to see you all coming on board. The plan was that we would admit everybody as panellists for the first part, just to have a little bit of social to begin with. And then when we move across to the full presentation mode, then we'll relegate everybody back to being attendees. Or did I break the plan?
Not at all.
So we can add in people.
Now you three are supposed to be practicing social distancing, remember?
We are practicing social distancing. It's just the
I don't know.
camera angle that makes people look more closer than 1.5 meters. See, Chris, you favourite toy. Chris going to go anywhere without his stuff.
Actually, the audio for the Narelle is really bad. I don't know if that's my end or yours.
I think it's Narelle's end, not.
It's very much Narelle's end, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's bad if my audio is bad, but is that any better, folks?
That's heaps better.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I can see a whole bunch of names on the screen. That's really good. If you want to turn your cameras on now, folks, it'll be lovely to see some of you as well. At least when we get a sense of that audience we get to play to. You know. Oh, great to see some folks.
Terry, hi,
Yeah,
Terry.
welcome back, Terry. It's great to see all of our members. And I think there's 1 or 2 guests in there. It's good to have you on board as well. Feel free to join. Bring your network. So the plan was that we would just have a few minutes of just casual chat, a little bit of social, warm the air, break the ice a bit, check everybody's audio. Check 1, 2. And then we'll move by, I think, 5:15, if I am correct, into formal presentation mode.
You do have the run sheet.
I do actually. It's on another. It's on the rest of the run sheet that I made.
Hey, Ryan.
There you go. I've got spares if anybody needs spares.
There we go.
And Graham, good to see you too. Graham, are you in this country or another one? And we've got some Kiwis on board here too. It's good to see you.
I'm in Sydney. I live in Sydney now. So good to see you.
Yeah. So that's great. We've got people who've actually left their houses, perhaps. No, some have, some haven't. And yeah, like I said, it's good to see a couple of Kiwis in there. Hopefully it won't get too late for the New Zealanders. We had to pick a time slot that would suit people in Western Australia, as well as our members in New Zealand, and of course the eastern states. So we're running across the ditch and across the continent.
4 hours free.
Yeah, yeah. And there could even be 1 or 2 I know that frequent even further north than this continent, but I suspect the one I'm thinking of is in this country, but we shall see. And yes, as in the New Zealand meeting we had earlier this week, it's always a bit strained at the beginning because no one's actually warmed up. We're all sort of sitting waiting for the action, which is the actual webinar discussion. Nothing's down today, I hope. All networks fine and dandy?
Oh, this side.
No interruptions. I shouldn't
looking
probably
around.
mention that, should I?
No, don't jinx it. That's all good.
This being, I think, the most superstitious industry I've ever come across. How many people have a dead chicken? Have a dead. How
New
many
South
people-
Wales.
I have a rubber chicken on my desk.
You've got a rubber chicken
I
on.
have a rubber chicken on my desk at all times.
I used to keep a rubber chicken in my kit bag just so that I could take it out and wave it over the equipment every
Yeah.
now and then.
Apply force with the chicken until it works.
So you apply force with the chicken. I
Mhm.
just wave the dead chicken rather than apply force.
The RFC does specify waving, but it does note that you can use it physically against
Oh.
other proponents.
Percussive maintenance.
Percussive maintenance, yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking getting into, like, don't witches use weaving? So shouldn't we have some of those sort of woven icons and images
Maybe
that we can
some
sort
fly
of hang
catchers
across
around
the,
here.
you know, across the old Cisco gear, or was it these BD something or others that people keep complaining
The
about?
old, the old Cisco ATM switches definitely needed voodoo.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They could turn with a bit of an eye.
Yes, yes. And I hope we're trying not to be in trouble here with appropriating people's cultures, but I think it's definitely a culture that we all have here that we will draw
I think
upon.
waving dead chickens is definitely our culture.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think if we could draw on any supernatural assistance, sometimes we do or will. Yeah, yeah.
And we also have Cisco's standard response to an unknown fault. It must be cosmic rays.
Well,
And how do you ward off cosmic rays, but with flycatchers?
but hang on, I remember, I mean, again, this is a couple of decades ago, possibly more. I remember getting an outage notice from Jeff Houston that said, look, I'm really sorry, but it actually is cosmic rays. And it was to do with
GSR line cards had that issue. It was an issue with parity,
Definitely
the way
fixed
they
it.
did their parity checking. But yeah, your 12K line cards would occasionally glitch.
I'm pretty sure it was to do with us moving satellite feeds around though. So it was actually,
No, there's definitely a
Earlier than GSRs.
it was an actual extraterrestrial event. And it's one of those outage notices I really do feel. And I thought it was something. Okay, whoever that is needs to go on mute. But yeah, I think it went in about 3 crashes ago.
Yeah, Cisco 12K single event upset is what you want to search for.
It's just that I've literally had a Cisco case in the last 6 months where they actually blame cosmic rays again. So it is actually
last 6 months.
it is actually a standard Cisco response, in my opinion, rather than an actual event.
It's back in vogue.
Mhm.
It's back in vogue. Well, I want to see the traces that tell me that that's actually true.
No, but the thing is that they can't find anything so it must be a cosmic ray.
Yeah.
It's,
Okay.
it's definitely one of those type of we don't know what went wrong. Something screwed up. It shouldn't know if
So listen,
cosmic rays.
you do know I have actually built cosmic ray air shower detectors
Right.
on the job.
Can we install one in our data center? Because it could be useful.
They can. Yeah, I might actually have an old descriptor of how to do that later.
Right. Definitely requires more research.
So I
They
mean-
call bullshit on that. On vendors.
Yeah, no, we definitely detected no cosmic rays in our data center. We have a detector.
But you see, the thing about detecting photons is that if you're only detecting small numbers of photons, you can't really prove that you didn't detect anyway. So we'll get into all sorts
Some
of
theoretical
physics here.
Yeah.
And it will get pretty tragic. Yeah. Well, how are we going for attendees now? What's the attendee count? 35. That's great. It's so good of you all to make the time. We really do appreciate it. And this being our first attempt at having a proper online event for everybody. With the lockdown, of course, we've had to put our full events program on ice. Our events coordinator Abby did, and Kitty, our executive officer, did put some real effort into making sure we had a solid events program for the year. And then, of course, the board approved it, and bang, down went the shutters on everybody. But hey, we're not in hospital, are we? So that's really good. Yeah, and all of our hospitals are working, which is even better.
It is.
So yeah. So we're up to 35, did you say, Nick? That's great. Who else can I pick on from the screen here? Ooh. Some of you people hiding behind black screens, you really have video cameras. They're great things. They don't hurt. They do not bite.
It does get that way on Zoom sometimes. Sometimes you get, a Zoom meeting and everyone's got the screens off. Sometimes everyone's got them on. So you've got to work out the etiquette for each meeting.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I think it's a question of how distracted people are, or if they've got things that they're trying to get done at the same time.
If I'm bored of the meeting, the camera goes off, yes.
Yeah. Or if the meeting content is actually boring. So hopefully...
Hang on.
Hopefully...
That seems to suggest something.
Share screen a picture of yourself at your desk.
Some guys have got animations going on.
Yeah, I think animations
just
will
twitch
help.
it a bit.
Animations will help. Yeah, at least if Chris could sort of tweak the teddy bear a few times, then at least we'll know he's not dead yet. And I can't actually read people's name tags from here, so if I call people out, it's just because I've made up a name. Well, we will probably hit the go button shortly, I think. Unless anybody's got any sort of member questions or thoughts before we get going they want to share. No? Oh, well, we could get drum roll, please, and move to the next phase if we're all ready to go. Ready to go, folks?
Why not?
Where's the clapper board? We'll have to get a clapper board for the next time
Everyone
around.
back over to attendees then, so you won't be able to talk or be able to see, but you'll be able to see the presentations and everything that's going on. So it'll just take me a minute to do all that. So
okay, thanks, Abby. She was going to switch you all back to attendees, and you won't be able to chat except in the type and text chat window, which Abby will monitor, as will Nick, I hope.
Yeah.
And let us know if anything urgent needs to be conveyed to us.
That's not the other day, but I don't know how.
The button that reboots your laptop.
And can you tell me when I'm good to go with the...
Good to go.
2 minutes.
So we're still moving people back over to attendee level.
So disappearing. Yep.
we're good to go.
I don't know where that button is. I know it's somewhere.
That's famous last words, isn't it, Nick? I don't know where that button
What does this button do?
What does this button do?
I think we just leave it at that for now.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, then throw that up so we can see it. Well, this I think marks then the beginning of the formal proceedings. Thank you again for coming, folks. This is our first of our series of online events for members and guests of the Internet Association of Australia. My name's Narelle Clark. I'm the new CEO of the Internet Association of Australia. Just quickly, if you don't remember this, but we run the biggest internet exchange in Australia. We have points of presence in nearly all the capital cities of Australia. We will get to the rest of them. And we have 37 points of presence across the country, running at approximately about 700 gigabits per second through our infrastructure. So here we are at our first online event. We've got some housekeeping notes, Nick. A couple of housekeeping notes. Now, normally at the beginning of an event, we will run through the emergency procedures, and the exits are, well, I don't know where your exits are, but ours are this way. If you see us running that way, that means we've had to evacuate the premises, and we'll leave Abby and Aaron on the background there talking you through a presentation amongst yourselves. Hopefully there won't be any emergencies here, but you hopefully all know where your own exits are, and you will find out where you will go to them if you need to. A feedback survey will be sent out tonight after the event, and we'd really like to hear from you if there are any improvements into the format, if you have any topics you want us to cover in the future. Names of topics and names of good people to give them would be really great if you could give them to us. If you are a member organisation and you've done something wonderful with your network and you'd like to tell everybody about it, give us that information as well. and we would love to do a presentation with you on that. That would be fantastic. Maybe we should also do the old peering socials where we get people together and you can share your AS numbers and how much traffic you want to peer and peer directly across our gear. Perhaps you want to do that. Let us know. As I said, this is the first of our online events. The next one will be on the 21st of July and it's going to be on RPKI implementation. And if you don't know what RPKI stands for, that's excellent. That means you should turn up. And we will help you learn not only what it stands for, but how to have it in and how to certify all of your routes. And that will be wonderful, real goodness for our networks. So yeah, let us know about these things, folks. And here we go, the actual proper part of the session. So how on earth did we get here, folks? We've had this thing called a pandemic. Just thinking back, for us at the Internet Association, in February, we were all involved with running Apricot. Now, Apricot is the Regional Networks Operators Group meeting, NOG meeting that coincides with the Asia Pacific top-level domains meeting and the Asia Pacific Network Information Centre APNIC meeting. So, we might all be internet people, but we do actually like to get together physically and talk about naming policy, numbering policy, how to do things, what's working, what's not working, comparing best practice, policy, all the rest of it. We compare a lot of notes. And those meetings bring together a lot of the people across the Asia Pacific to talk about all sorts of good things. Now, back in February, as we were getting really close to running Apricot, we were looking at some really interesting numbers coming out of China. And they weren't the usual numbers that we network nerds like to look at. They were some numbers that were making us sort of think about other things. So we love numbers, and most of us were all engineers and scientists. So of course we went ahead to read a whole lot of WHO reports. Now I remember having a fair bit of time with Phillip Smith from APNIC, where we were debating transmission rates and propagation numbers, because basically it's just queuing theory in another thing, folks. It's just passing a different sort of packet around and perhaps a little bit more damage to, anyway. So anyway, we read a lot of these WHO reports, we asked the venue a lot of questions, and we did a lot of thinking. And then when the borders shut with China, we had a lot of mixed feelings at the time, and good people couldn't make it, and we knew things were really going to change. In fact, to coin a phrase, we knew that shit was going to get real. And, Apricot was a really successful event. We had, I know I spent a lot of time making gracious exits amongst groups of people and washing my hands an awful lot. But other stuff started to happen, didn't it? What happened next? Okay, Nick. This is what we saw. These are our graphs over the last few months. And in the first half, so the top half of the screen there is our aggregated IXs. So we stack up all of the traffic through all of the different internet exchanges, and you can see the throughput across the whole lot. Now, you can see the first half of it there is up until around about February, and then hit the button, please, Nick. There's a little glitch there where we lost some data somewhere. I don't know what happened, it fell on the floor. So hit the switch again, and then you can see there's a distinct uptick in the traffic as the whole of Australia just left their offices, went home, and I don't know, were they just watching Netflix and being scared or what? But we saw an awful lot of extra traffic. And we also saw a few other little bits and pieces along the way. Nick, you want to hit that one? Which resulted in last Thursday night, we nearly cracked the top of the button. But anyway, that's what we saw. Okay, but I think those of you who are all members will have already seen all these graphs. So let's move along and let's hear about what actual people who run real networks, apart from me, because I have staff for that, saw. So here are my panellists. I've got David Hooton, who's, by the way, is also the chair of my board and is a wonderful person. You all should know him. He's the CTO at Field Solutions Group, which is a specialist in rural and remote telecommunications. So doing wonderful things for all of the country, just keeping all of those kids in learning throughout the year, not just over the pandemic. Now, David's background is focused in carrier engineering. He has a long history of delivering highly automated networking solutions in the carrier, cloud and data center space. He's a specialist in development and commercialisation of software and automated networking solutions, and has built his career on building networking products and services that enable customers to control their own destiny, which is just wonderful. He established Platform Networks in 2002, an Australian pioneer in software orchestrated networks, and in 2015 founded Ordnance Networks, which is cloud-scale, carrier-grade network as a service business. Welcome, David. Wonderful guy. Absolutely magnificent. Brett, also magnificent. All-round network guy, 25 years experience in service providers, spanning startups to multinationals, and the complete network technology stack. And the last 5 years, Brett has been with Vocus, various roles in Vocus, and currently developing new platforms and technologies as Senior IP Engineer. And Brett, by the way, knows all sorts of wonderful things about MPLS inside out. It's just fantastic. And IP and BGP, and all very helpful. Phil, who's over on in Melbourne in his office. Hi, Phil. Wave to us all. Phil spent nearly 3 decades in the telco industry and started his first ISP at 18. Now, the rest of us were just thinking about it, and he was just doing it. Largely because it turns out he wanted cheap internet. So in 2003, he founded Wideband Networks with his business partner from their lounge room in Morwell. And Phil saw a growing need to extend broadband access into regional and rural areas of Australia. As a result, Wideband Networks merged with Westvic Broadband in 2008, and Aussie Broadband was created. And during this time, Phil was appointed Managing Director. Phil's passion is putting the customer at the centre of the business, where they belong. He thrives on big challenges, and in 2016 announced the company's intention to go Australia-wide by rolling out its own national network. And in addition to the many prestigious awards the company has won, Phil has been recognised for his contributions to the Australian telco industry by being inducted into the Edison Awards Hall of Fame. Well done, Phil. That is fabulous. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
So, on to our questions. Network stuff. That's the first bunch of questions. So, we keep hearing that these are unprecedented times. But truly, for the vast majority of people, the internet has performed really well throughout the pandemic and the lockdown period. It's as if nothing was needed. Nothing. All of my extended family, tell me, was all great. So these guys are laughing. I think Phil's laughing, and all of you in the audience are all laughing away as well. So the essential questions we want to know are: what changes did you see? What changes did you make? What broke and what didn't? So let's go through these, because we know a lot of work's gone on behind the scenes. I think I should start with Phil. So Phil, you run such a big. Do you want to flick off the PowerPoint, and then we can actually see real human beings again. So Phil, you run a big retail network. What changes did you see?
Look, we saw a huge traffic uplift across the network, and it was relatively sudden when the full-blown lockdown started to kick in. It was quite evident, and we were seeing sort of a 25 to 30% increase during the peak, which then was going up to around a 40% increase on certain events when game updates came through on top of that already high traffic. And look, it was certainly video streaming was a huge component of that. So obviously people were sitting at home bored and nothing better to do. I hear the birth rates going up in 9 months' time as well, so they were probably entertaining themselves that way too. But
more customers.
That's it, more customers. But ultimately, yeah, there was a huge uptick in traffic, and I think probably the reason that everyone saw it and just ran, smoothly was a huge credit in NBN's front there, that they provided the 40% CVC uplift. So I think they really deserve the accolades here, because ultimately, if the industry was left to carry the load of that CVC burden that was necessary, we would have either seen mass congestion across the networks or RSPs in a significantly bad financial state. So I think it was a combination of the industry working together and has probably done some of its best work together during this period of time, which has then meant that the community goes, well, there's nothing to see here, sort of thing. But when really in the background, there was a lot of hard work being done by a lot of good people, and that's what ultimately has led us to where we are today. So, yeah.
So, well, Brett, did you see the same sort of thing, 25 to 30% upticks and.
Yeah, pretty much. It's and it was really that ramp up on that from that Monday through to that Friday, and that Friday was the new max high we'd ever seen on that first week.
So that the week one, you actually hit the highest your network had ever hit.
Done.
And that was a big wake up call. I think we were all in the background having chats at that time, going, "What is this really happening?" Yeah. So you kept on seeing it go up, and was that did you see any different shape across the network? So what about the business network versus the retail?
So the business lump got bigger. You lost the.
The business lumps got bigger.
Yeah, so you missed the first lump in the morning you get when the kids get up and watch YouTube.
Right.
That went away. It just went up and then just stuck up through the day.
Okay.
So a normal day, you kind of get that 8 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m. lump and drops down when the kids go to school. And then 3 a.m. when they all get back,
when the
starts
kids all
going
get
up.
home from school, it jumps up
A
again.
bit more of a dip at dinner, and then skyrockets when the kids are at bed and everyone gets on Netflix.
Yeah.
And on Fridays is not normally a peak day because people go out to dinner, pubs, and that sort of thing.
People actually have lives where they chat and do things. Yeah.
And so instead you got that ramp up at 7, 8 o'clock, and that just continued through the day.
Right. Until it peaked completely at the normal peak hour in
and
the
then
evening.
The normal peak was then 20% up on top.
20% higher. Okay.
Yeah.
Because what I had heard was that the business networks had a bit of a flattening during the day.
That was an interesting question I was going to try and look at today that I forgot to look at the graphs.
I went and looked at a bunch of our business customers just recently, and what we saw was, yes, the traffic did remain there.
So the business customers stayed flat?
The traffic did remain fairly flat.
However,
their outbound traffic actually went up much higher than it was previously.
Right.
So
they were sending traffic off net because they were having communications with people who were working from home, working across retail networks.
It was mainly VPN traffic.
And it was VPN traffic. Oh, that's good to hear. They were using VPN.
I did hope to go check my graphs and see that today. And that was my theory how it was going to work.
And there was also a delay. There was a couple of phases of it as well, when you could tell it took vendors a little while to actually be able to ship enough VPN ports for people to actually have to do upgrades. So there was a first phase of it, and then it actually over a period of time started to grow significantly more afterwards.
So I do know internally our IT department had to deploy a lot more VPN licenses, and that takes purchase order and delivery times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the VPN licenses, because people have generally got to pay for the licenses, they've got to download the license, they've got to apply the license, and then add extra how many thousand users. And that doesn't take half an hour. That doesn't take.
It should, but let's not go there. The automation master here, he'd sort it out in no time if it was his problem.
So what about across the rural areas? What did you see, David?
So we had same as Phil. So we saw a nice ramp up at the very beginning of it, but it wasn't quite as pronounced. It actually took quite a lot longer for our customer base to start to grow. So we saw a bit of a ramp up, but it took about an extra 2 weeks or so before the traffic really started to move.
Right.
And
they had to get back to the country.
Well, I think people who were working in offices or in work sites that we were looking after, they just didn't have equipment at home in order to actually go and connect.
Or the fact was that their offices were still fairly isolated from each other anyway. Fewer people in those offices, as opposed to the bigger city offices where you've got 200 people on the floor plate.
There's certainly been a very different cultural impact on it in the bush, yeah.
Yeah, right. But still, people in the bush ended up at home, looking at them, doing video conferencing with everybody else and running all their events from home.
Some did, but the vast majority that I've been visiting, at least during this time, have kind of discontinued business as usual. So,
okay. So business as usual in their offices in the little towns, but there's still social distancing anyway because there's fewer people around. Yeah. Okay. What about the extra backhaul capacity? Did everybody have enough of that? Oops, did I mention
Wasn't
something?
that a burn for you guys?
Well, we have many customers who increased the amount of traffic they were consuming.
Yeah, I think we might have bought some more.
So we actually had we ended up having a sales SWAT team formed, and it's not my area, but I'm aware of the business has done this, that we're talking to customers who needed more backhaul bandwidth, needed things turned up quickly. And so we had an entire team and associated provisioning guys to maximize that as quickly as possible. So we were turning up new 10 gigs weekly as soon as we got an order in.
So hang on, just let me hear that again. You were turning up new 10 gig links pretty much constantly.
Yeah, hundreds a day.
Yeah, hundreds of 10 gig links a day. Well, that's a lot of capacity, folks. Yeah, that starts to add up. I mean, it's we've got around the place. And so, as Phil points out, that NBN did kick in with this extra 40%.
The interesting question, I think, is actually how the public and NBN are going to wean us all off this 40% bonus. It seems like it's almost a one-way bargain, which is going to be very, very difficult commercially to wind back.
So unless Phil's got...
Yeah, I was going to say, look, there's certainly the bandwidth capacity side. We're probably a little bit luckier in that we don't run our NNIs probably as hard as some of the others, I guess. And so we were able to absorb that capacity to a large degree, or our policy is that we dual path everything, and one path will just be sitting there completely empty. And so I guess that's a bit of an insurance policy for extra capacity. But I think you've hit the nail right on the head there with the coming back off the 40%. Again, because not only has people gotten used to that, I guess, but there's also the organic traffic growth has continued to grow. And I know, like, we're seeing sort of 25% year-on-year traffic growth, and I'd be interested to see what others find in terms of that growth, because I guess there's probably a broader conversation here as an industry around and I guess this is more of a commercial discussion, so probably not really here, but there's an element around inclusions keeping up with, I guess, demand, and there's probably a disconnect there. So
it's network planning, which I do an awful lot of, and yeah, we have a compound annual growth figure of about 30%. We'll model 15, 20, 25.
Wait a second, we've
30,
always
35.
had this level of compound growth.
So they've given us 40 to start with.
Oh, apart from this big step.
And now we've got to drop back to zero when in 3 months, you know, that portion of 3 months is actually 10% growth, and plus because consumers are now using more. So we're actually probably looking at we'll need to drop back to 15% of where we were, maybe. And this is all just picking figures out of the air. We need to be 15% of where we were in March. And that's going to be costly, as Phil points out, to get back to where we should have been to start with, plus.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a big bullet to swallow for us retail people.
So it does sound to me as if the industry might want to start calling for us to be able to retain that.
I would suggest that might be the approach.
Those members who are tuning in, I want to hear what you all think about this, because it might mean we do need to have some conversations with others across the industry, shall we say. Yeah.
But it's interesting to see also how household habits have changed, and like we're seeing it in our bandwidth graphs as well. Now that there is available bandwidth and it's not necessarily congested anymore, and Phil's network is obviously a shining light in this regard, and others which I've certainly worked inside of run a lot hotter than that. But watching the way that you add an extra 40% of capacity, how rapidly that 40% is almost immediately consumed again.
Yeah, so it's really impressive to see just when that 40% CDC uplift came, everyone started using it. So
would you agree with that?
And maybe that's not necessarily COVID related. It's actually because
it's the freeway principle.
Yeah,
wouldn't you agree, Phil? It's the freeway principle. The more lanes you put on the freeway, the more cars go on it.
And I think that's a big part, but I do agree that people's habits have changed. So like, even if we just look across, say, fetch sales, which is something we've got visibility over, that's increased quite significantly. So instead of just being a single TV that's a streaming device, you now have maybe the kids' TV or something going on a tablet in a room or something like that. And so people's habits are shifting because they've been forced to use this, just like in business, for example, where everyone's moved to a Zoom and WebEx and all those sorts of technologies. It's forced a change in habit that I don't think we're going to see retreat quickly, because people have realised that, okay, well, now these things do actually work, and we can conduct business. So I see the travel industry's probably screwed to a large degree out of this, because all these face-to-face meetings will probably end up being largely online now. And I think the streaming habits and that sort of people, like, yes, it will step down, but it's not going to step back to where it was pre-COVID. So
that's exactly what we're trying to look at in the traffic forecasting that I'm doing at the moment. Is just where are we going to set that? And we just don't know. We've got to model all the options and see where we end up.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, if you've got a family or a group of adults who share a household, they've hopefully got jobs, and if they haven't got jobs, then they still need to socialise, and they will socialise via online methods. If they're not working or socialising, then hopefully they're studying, and then they will be getting access to online materials, which are all bandwidth hungry. There's a lot of video content in every aspect of what we do now.
Well, what we see, I mean, if people are losing jobs, and I mean the jobs data is indicating that that's certainly occurring, is people tighten their spending, and so they stop doing things like going out and perhaps going to the movies or going out and socialising at pubs and all those sorts of things. And so when you've got people coming back into that home setting again, they're going to do things to entertain themselves, and these days that's all to do with streaming. And so you see it in people that are low socioeconomic groups that have much higher bandwidth consumption as a result of that, because they're filling their day in other ways. So,
well, I think studies have shown over the last few years that people count telecommunications as one of their most critical aspects of their spending. I think that the household income data shows that that proportion of wallet that goes from the average Australian consumer to telecommunications is remaining high, and that people consider that as an essential part of their spend, that they will go without other things in order to maintain their connectivity. I mean, connectivity is such a rich and important thing. I mean, you know, we're all very we're addicts. That could be true. That could be true. Okay, then. So I think we've tried to run through what changes did you see, what changes did you make? You've added lots of extra bandwidth. Were there any other network changes that you wanted to mention?
I've probably pulled up. So we've eaten into a lot of our redundant capacity.
You've eaten into your redundant capacity. Well, that wasn't actually redundant, was it?
No, it's all redundant. It's not. It's using the backup links. It's using the redundant capacity we had latent to maintain the illusion that everything's working. So the next major phase of work we have is to rebuild all that and backfill that.
So backfill that stuff.
We've used our 30% of KDAR in a month. And that was supposed to last a year.
Yeah.
So backfilling that capacity is where we need to be at.
So on the network side, let's just talk about maybe a sore point here. Did anything actually break for you, or did you fix any? Like, did anything go badly wrong?
Not badly. Not badly.
Not badly.
Oh, so like interesting techie one. We run a bunch of BNG that have
broadband network gateways.
That have 4 10 gig links facing downwards towards NBN. The load balancing on them is very chunky. So you might have and we generally run those at about 75% of capacity.
Right.
And when they get towards 90% of capacity, they don't load balance very well, and you end up with one of those out of the 4 just not flatlining, while the others are doing 60%. And so that requires manual alerting, manual intervention. So our operations teams are monitoring things, getting alerts, and shifting traffic manually as a result of this that we never had to do before.
So that is down to equipment when it starts to run hot, starts to not perform as effectively as it should.
Your load balancing doesn't nearly work as well as it used to.
Well, because the fact is that vendors can't really bench test under these high levels of demand with the vast array of different types of traffic that you get in the real world, can they? Yeah. So Phil, did you see anything really break hard for you?
Look, it didn't break hard. We had to do BNG rebalancing as well. That was certainly something we needed to do. For mostly us, it was a lot of our P&Is started to run hot. So there was a lot of very quick movement, like into Netflix and into Apple and a few of the others to move from sort of multiple 10 gigs on a couple of occasions into multiple 100 gig links. And so there was a lot of P&I upgrading going on very, very rapidly. Most of our change was actually staff-based and then moving everyone, as many as we could, out of the offices into home. So we moved whole call centre operations into work from home, and that in a pretty rapid movement.
Okay, well that's a really good point. So throw up the next slide, please, Nick. So I wanted then to move across to...
Before we get there, questions from them.
Oh, okay. We've got a couple of questions. We could perhaps throw a few of those up then, Nick.
Yep. So I've got Aftab. He's asked, how about the IPv6 traffic? Looking at Google's measurements, there was a clear difference between pre-COVID-19 lockdown and post-lockdown, but doesn't see much difference in Australian traffic patterns via AppNet.
Anybody see any extra IPv6? Please say yes, or my whole career has been left misguided again. Still?
Unfortunately, I can't comment on IPv6.
Oh, you haven't got a retail IPv6 network?
No.
Okay. Anybody else?
We've got I guess a beta IPv6 network, but haven't seen a huge amount of traffic. Our intent is to move 50% of our base onto IPv6 over the next 12 months. So that will hopefully change, but yeah, haven't seen much.
Yeah, because we're going to need, I mean, if our BNGs are running hot, then surely we need to not do NAT over the top of them as well.
Oh.
You know, if we can reduce the amount of NAT, surely that will reduce some of the processing that needs to go on and start to get more connectivity out there. Sorry, Nick, next question.
That's okay. And one last really statement. Mike O'Connor from Jasmine Communications has said he's seen a tripling of his voice capacity and his voice usage 7 days after lockdown started, and it hasn't stopped from there.
That was what broke. That was actually what broke. Other than porting of numbers, which was put on hold during that period, what did break was voice interconnects. We had customers calling and complaining.
Optus had
a
company had problems with another company.
Somebody announced the dole was available for everybody. Remember that one day when every single person tried to ring a single 1-800 or 1-300 number that became out of one government department on one network, so everybody's signalling and voice interconnects went down.
Yeah, that turned into like busy numbers or busy calls for mobiles, for landline, VoIP, the whole shebang.
Yeah, broke everyone's for everything.
And not good. That in turn turned into more calls into the help desk, which caused more congestion. It was an amazing snowball of joy, that one.
What I do see now, maybe not directly related, but there's been a much more open discussion about going to SIP with some of the bigger carriers now, which traditionally has only been TDM.
So you mean SIP interconnects as opposed to Signalling System 7, SS7 interconnects? Oh, okay. So actual voice over IP for the interconnects between carrier networks.
Yeah. No, because a lot of our traditional, the TDM network is very well regulated, and the SIP interconnect is not very well regulated. So there've been no push for them to move to a SIP environment.
Well, that's
it has been a barrier of entry.
Okay, so I think the evolution of all of our voice networks onto the whole new different architectures, that's going to be another session. We don't have to do that now. Let's not do that now, because I'll go right down that hole. Okay, so next slide, so we can go on to the operations type stuff, which Phil has beautifully introduced us to. Next slide. We'll get there. Poor old Nick's having to drive about 5 different screens at once. So operations stuff. Okay, now what do my notes tell me I'm supposed to say? So we know that some operators found themselves suddenly without offshore call centres and operations teams as they were all sent home. I saw little ISPs and telcos with their remote teams all working fine because they already worked from home, even the offshore ones, but they couldn't get number porting or any field teams out because there was no way to take orders and no way to process orders, and all of a sudden big call centers had to come in. So is that what you saw? Oh, and I've got a picture up there on the screen. Okay, so this is about staffing changes. So there were issues with getting in and out of data centers due to heightened security protocols, and of course none of us could travel interstate. Now we actually had to get some work done in a state where we didn't have anybody, and we had to find somebody who could do stuff, and we had to find a way to pay them, and we paid them in beers. They were actual coronas, yes.
Yes, they were actual coronas.
So that we had to make do with unusual field forces, because no one could travel, and unusual payment methods. And we instigated extra web conference team meetings. Even though this was normal for us, we did that a lot more. So let's talk about operational changes. You can get rid of the slides now, because these are the questions. What operational changes, what staffing changes, what worked, what didn't work. Okay, Phil, you started it. Take us away.
Yeah, so we're partly lucky in a way that a lot of our operations are in regional Victoria. So we have 2 major call centres, one at Lynbrook, which is near Dandenong, so that's sort of out of Metro Melbourne. The other one at Morwell, which is, most people don't know, but it's basically where Victoria's electricity comes from. But, and we have about 300 staff in Morwell, and then about another 140 odd in Lynbrook. So what we had to do was, our site at Morwell is a full hot desk with a relatively small amount of space, so certainly not very conducive to social distancing and all those sorts of things. So we basically moved half of the staff out of all those centres immediately. And so we went through a process of setting, we're on hard phones on desks, so VoIP phones, but still hard phones. We didn't have enough kit to send home to staff, so we VPN client every single staff member's computer, soft phone cliented every computer, installed, virus checking and all those sorts of things on everyone's computers, so that at least the environment was as good as we could get it. And then we locked down the VPN so that the only thing they could access is a terminal server, which is what they would normally do in the call center anyway, because it was a terminal server type environment. So that allowed us to move very quickly. We did that in 3 days to move about 250 staff off site. And then what we've done is every second desk effectively is vacant in the office space, because what happened for us is that we had a two-tone effect in that we had to move everyone out, but because some of the bigger carriers, offshore call centres were offline, we were getting inundated with calls from people who just wanted help. It didn't matter the fact that we weren't their provider, they just wanted help. And we were one that was still answering the phone. And so in the initial stages, we had a real uptick in sales as a result of that, I guess, because people were just swapping because we could help them, which then had the snowball effect of, well, suddenly we needed more staff. And so we employed 130 new staff over 8 weeks.
Wow. Did they all come from Qantas? Sorry.
Well, we actually, so one of our sales team leaders that we've recently picked up is actually a Qantas A380 captain, because he figured he won't be flying anytime soon, and he's happy to take a sales call centre job because at least he's bringing some money in for his family, kind of thing. So yes, there are some airline staff who came across. And the issue with that then came is, well, how do you train all those people? And so that's what we've done, is left, I guess, a skeleton crew of our experienced staff in the actual office, training all of the new people, because it's very difficult to train over Zoom or WebEx or something like that. And then all of our experienced staff are at home. So regardless of whether you're call center, whether you're network ops or whatever, they're at home. And then our spaces, I guess, are split up into, I guess, 3 sub offices, and then so we prevented any movement between the sub offices so that if coronavirus did get into one spot, we could just lock that one zone down, if you like, and not lose the entire thing. And our biggest part was our warehouse operation that does all the modem dispatch, because we couldn't easily replicate that anywhere else, and so we needed to, that was a real strict isolation, that particular warehouse area. So that there was 6 staff that could go in there, and that was it, kind of thing. So yeah, it was quite interesting from that. Thankfully we haven't had any, touch wood, hardware type issues or interstate failure issues or anything like that to deal with in the process. But our process was going to be always remote hands for that. But ours has mainly been dealing with the influx initially, because all of these other call centres were off, combined with the number porting, which I'm sure we'll get to. And then our marketing team had in December already designed a significant uplift in campaign that we've decided to continue to run through, and that's delivered well during that period. So we've had a net gain of 50,000 customers in 3 months and 10 days. So it's been just ridiculous growth. So.
Well done. Yeah, well done. And it's, I mean, we're not hearing complaints. That was another piece of data that I heard coming through, that the complaints have not gone up.
Well, it was interesting because one of our external CX metrics, our CX has actually gone up during this from where it was. It was already sort of, I guess, top of the industry, but it's gone even higher as a result. So.
Oh, well done.
The team's done an awesome job. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the team that's pulled this off. It's I got stuck in a work from home, told I wasn't allowed in the office kind of thing in case something went wrong. So I've been stuck in this room now for 10 weeks or something like that. So.
Yeah, that's what my staff tell me too. I'm not allowed in the data centre, but I'm not entirely sure that's the truth, Phil.
That's got nothing to do with
Okay, so what about you then?
So it's certainly our retail brand is an offshore call center, and yes, they just went dark one day. There was very little notice to
I bet you're worried about them too.
Well, and so we have actually lost several staff members in that team as well to COVID.
Oh my gosh!
So yeah, we've got a collection going around.
Oh, that's awful. That's awful to hear. And that really does bring home how safe we've been within Australia, that you've actually lost members of the offshore call centre. I'm really sad to hear that.
Yeah,
because
it was quite a shock.
Again has the impact on everyone's mental health, that we are actually all worried. You know, there's stuff here that makes us all worried. So please keep sorry, Brett. Okay.
Yeah, no,
we're all overcome. Yeah.
It was all a bit of a shock, and the guy had a small family, a young family, and so yeah, that's we're looking to help him and his community in that. But it probably took them a good 2 to 3 weeks to come up with a plan to have their staff work from home, and then we have security concerns with them then accessing their office to access our office, and so yeah, the offshore call center has come back on board slowly, but it was quite a shock to the system. And clearly having an onshore
the onshore call center was a big advantage.
Was a big advantage there. Yeah. Our business and our wholesale brands is all onshore, and so that I hope that our customers have had a good experience through that. But yeah, the retail brand was a bit of a hit, and I imagine we probably had some churn to our good local friends.
Not a huge amount from Vocus coming across, so I think all good.
There you go. But probably the other one that I was going to bring up was field staff and techs going around the country.
Getting to field staff. I saw delays in connections, through one of our other members saying that they'd send somebody out to site to do a connection, to do an install, and of course there's nobody there. They can't get into the building. They've made arrangements so that person wouldn't make it. So it's this endless handoff that doesn't happen.
We had field staff turned away from data centers with the temperature.
With their temperatures.
We've also given our field staff all the full checklist of what to do to enter someone's house, and if they don't feel safe, they're not in any way obligated to go in there. And the other one was, of course, the border lockdowns. We run a national transmission network.
Yes.
And if we've got a fibre break just south of the Queensland border, it makes more sense to send someone from Brisbane from Sydney.
Yeah.
We had to negotiate with all the local
border checks,
all the border checks, and get sign off for all our field techs to be able to cross borders.
Well, you saw that letter that I put together for our staff that said that where I had to go through all the different legislation and quote all the different pieces of regulation that said that, under New South Wales declaration, blah, 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 Nick was allowed out of the house to go and sort something out. So we had to do that for every state, and I had to go through all the legislation. It took forever.
Yeah, and we had to cross the borders as well. So.
And you had to cross borders.
So our operations staff did take a while to get the appropriate letters approved and signed off and given to those people so they could
because the last thing you want is people getting arrested crossing the border just to do some fibre splice. Oh, we laugh. Yeah. And Dave, is that what's
very similar sort of scenario? So for us, we have executive team working in data centers instead of engineers at the moment because we just don't have engineers in every state or location. Crossing borders is a frequent problem for us. We have a quite small team who work in very remote areas and have to go to Queensland and all sorts of places quite regularly. And again, those logistics are quite hard. But the hardest thing, which is you brought up as well, is just appointment setting. The simple act of the logistics of booking an appointment to go and visit a customer's premise in order to install a new service or to go and service it is actually, it takes about 3 times as long now.
Yes. Because
you've got to go through all the OH&S requirements. You've got to make sure the person's actually there. You've then got to actually make sure your engineers are healthy enough to do it. There's a lot of checks and balances.
Meet the particular building and security requirements for that particular building.
Exactly. I mean, we're here in this building because the other facility that we were going to use was going to be, it's not open. So, yeah.
So a lot has changed in that regard. It's a lot harder to get in and out of data centers as well, which is, that's a fact of life now.
Well, that's right. So, in the data centers, you've got to make appointments now, be in advance, be temperature checked at the door. You can't there's no tours. We can't use meeting rooms in data centers. There's all sorts of extra.
You have to wear a mask.
Oh, you've got to wear a mask. Which data center was it?
Equinix require masks.
Oh, well, okay. And do they check that they're P95 masks? And they're probably, okay, we won't mention that because they might think
It's
it's
a mask. Yeah.
It's a mask. It's a mask.
So don't
Like
they?
when they give you the Apple Store.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so wow. So unusual field forces, unusual payment methods, mentioned that, extra web conferencing. Any other fun gotchas with
One of the other
teams?
ones that took us quite a while when we were transitioning our team to working from home was just managing an actual home-based working OH&S, making sure that our staff actually had appropriate work environments to work in.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that we weren't going to wind up with you know,
With extra
injured,
claims because
with
of-
injured
yeah,
staff,
yeah,
not so
yeah.
much the
With
claims as much as
injured-
just
yeah,
injured staff who are out of
yeah,
action.
yeah.
And supporting them through finding furniture while everything is in lockdown and, IKEA is not even open. So a lot of those logistics for people who don't have a home office is quite difficult.
Office work sold out printers. I need printers to print the kids' schoolwork, and I went in like a week late, and you couldn't find a printer.
Yeah.
Well, video cameras have been, webcams have been hard to come by. Yeah. So you couldn't get printers.
Yeah.
Couldn't get.
Yeah,
printers.
certainly the OH&S side has been a real thing. We had everyone basically photograph their area and send it into the people and culture team to look at, and we ended up half the office has been gutted of office furniture as we're going, no, that doesn't work.
The interim solution was that the people and culture went, go into the office, tell us what you're taking, book it out, and take it home.
So actually having to keep lists of what equipment from the office went home.
Yeah.
And
the asset register is going to be.
The asset register's going to be fun to catch up on, isn't it, for a lot of people? Yeah. So actually, you're right. We went through that little phase too of comparing home offices, and it was the whole desk porn thing that people went through. It's like, oh, I've got this.
People posting things. I think you've all seen my office. We're
we've seen
in the garage.
Your office isn't an office. That's what we call a man cave.
This is a pub.
It looks like a pub.
There's some beer taps in the background. I'm working on my workbench.
Yeah. Yours looks much more sophisticated there, Phil. I'm very impressed. Is there peanuts in the background? I don't know what it is.
I've got I'm into a bit of music stuff, so I've got a music editing gear, and just there's a fibre joint on the table back there that I've been playing with, and just a few other odds and ends. So.
Shaun the sheep, I think.
Yeah, some little sheep that my nephew gave me that I just keep there as a reminder of him. So yeah.
And of course, there are all those jokes about people's, naked flatmate walking past, or the children jumping into the lap.
There's one of those clickbait ones where a husband's deliberately dressing up in the back of his wife's Zoom meetings, and it's like
dressing up.
Yeah, just dressing up, being silly, and no, all above board. Actually, being where's Wally in the background and that sort of thing, just making fun of the situation.
So, did you have issues with enforcing appropriate business attire, or did you not worry about that? I know, because I was still doing a bit of teaching at a university that I won't name, and one of my students came to a student meeting in a dressing gown. And now that student would not have come to my office on campus in a dressing gown. So really,
university students.
I know university students do often wear odd things, and they will occasionally wear dressing gowns to campus. It's true. But what about Phil? Did you have to? No.
Look, we're pretty loose and free in terms of what staff can wear to the office at the best of times. So like there'll be certain days where it's pajama day or whatever, and people can rock in their pajamas and slippers, and that's perfectly acceptable in the call centre. So I'm a big believer in that. Wear what you feel is comfortable. Obviously, it still needs to be appropriate, but we're certainly not a shirt and slack kind of organisation. So
it's actually the first time I've worn a collar in about 3 months. I wore it to look professional for a change.
Yeah, I went business attire because it was actually exciting. It was, oh wow.
You have to go out. Yeah, do my hair.
Yeah. We all did our hair. I want that noted, everybody. We did our hair. Yeah.
So Phil, a question I got for you with a larger team. How did you manage the feelings of alienation / lack of community with your team, given that working from home can be quite lonely?
Yeah, look, it's been a real challenge. So we use Slack as our internal sort of communications medium, and there was quite a few different channels sort of pop up purely around that. I guess mental health, social interaction. There was things like we use WebEx as our sort of, I guess, chosen platform. And so we put WebEx units into the lunchrooms at the office so that people who wanted to participate in, I guess, lunch with someone else could just dial into a particular lunchroom and just interact with the other people there for some social stuff. Because a lot of the people, we've got a lot of young guys essentially that either live alone or don't have any other interaction. But we've also got the other end of the spectrum where you had people that they had their kids at home, and so they were stressed about homeschooling, they were stressed about not being in at work and all of that. So there's a lot of different groups form, I guess, peer support groups, and our EAP program as well has had a bit more of a workout during this period than perhaps what we would normally see. So we have a real strong family community feel, I guess, within the Aussie team, as I'm sure a lot of workplaces do, but it's really worked overtime to support all those people and that. But yeah, we've done a lot of work on those communication mechanisms and means so that everyone can be in, I guess, feeling like they're part of the team, even though they're not in with the team physically. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah, that water cooler stuff is important. And there's another organisation I know of who's actually in the US who some of their staff didn't feel safe working at home, and they felt actually physically safer to be in the office. So they went through provisions to make sure that it was safe to be in the office, that they were, that from a virus point of view, that it was safe to be in the office. And implemented some additional social distancing and made sure that the facilities were available for staff. And that's, things that you don't really expect, that people would be coming to work for that safety. Not just actually to do work, but work does provide a whole lot of things for people, for their whole well-being.
Yeah, we've definitely got staff who really do rely on that community from the office as well, and who they've been coming in more often than not, and for exactly the same reason.
Yeah, so that thing.
I had lunch with my colleagues in the city for the first time today, and it was actually good to see them.
Yeah, and they're not just doing it to get away from their children.
I think some of them are.
No, I agree with that. It's I share a house with John Risinger, my sort of business partner and founder in Broadband originally, sort of thing. We've been doing that for about 20 years, and it's sort of fine during the day because you go in the office and you're interacting differently and come home. But in a work from home environment, he's sort of at one end of the house, I'm at the other, and you kind of meet in the middle for dinner at night, and there's all you got to talk about really is work, which is the same thing. You don't even get a different spin kind of thing. So it has that missing of the social interaction is huge.
So in my own circumstance, my house is overflowing. I've got children at home who are adults that haven't been at home for a while. So, and plus the elderly mother. So we've got the house is overflowing, and I find at times there are too many distractions that people sort of come in because I'm there. They think they can get me to do something when normally I wouldn't. I'd be in an office somewhere working away.
Yeah.
And the extra
3-year-olds also just see you sitting there and want to come up and play, Daddy, play, call up to, so I've actually caught her a few times now playing with the dolls on the couch, and Mummy doll comes along and Baby doll wants attention. Mummy doll says no, I'm on a call, and goes away and sits in the corner. It's just really heartbreaking to see that's her role play now with her dolls.
Yeah. Although kids, traditionally when we lived in rural communities and we sort of were threshing in the fields, you'd have the kids around nearby threshing in the fields with you, wouldn't you? I mean, it's
if I can train her to automate some of the network, it'll be fine.
It'd be really cool. Very useful.
Okay, so let's get on to the last section then, and that is we've got some questions. We should
just before that, we've got one question from Michael Malone. Will you allow staff, especially call centre staff, to continue working remotely? What percentage, if so? Will you give an option or compel staff to be in the office? Will you now recruit staff who work entirely from home? Think of positive impact on regional Australia.
Okay, who wants to take that one first? Will you keep up the working from home in the call centres, folks?
I'm in management. I'm in engineering. We have two management types who can.
Not your department.
Not my department.
Go, Phil.
Yeah, I'm happy to run with it. So I guess what we found from this, and we had prior to this been very reluctant to have people work from home. And I guess there was all the pre-misconceptions around how do you manage the team, how do you, all that. And what we found is that for probably about 60% of the staff, they actually work more efficient and are more productive. About 30% of them need a greater level of management and more oversight, and then the other 10% are kind of just about the same as what they are, whether they're in the office or not. And so what we're looking at is more a method of, I guess, progressive work from home. So in the past that, like a lot of people would come into the office even if they've had, I guess, the sniffles and those sorts of things, where they're well enough to work, but they're not well enough to, yeah. And so what we're looking at is a method where some of the time that you're working in the office, but if it makes sense for you to be at home, if you're doing a project, or if you're not quite feeling 100%, we don't want it spread around the office, but you're still feeling good enough to work, well, then you can work from home and that kind of thing. Some of the new roles we have recruited, there's probably about 20 staff that have never actually met their managers face to face yet, because they've been more senior roles. And one of our senior leadership team is in the high risk category. And so she hasn't been able to leave her house basically. And so she's had to onboard about 5 members of her team fully remotely and that. And so it shows it can be done. And I think it's just a case of, if you've got the right person and the right set of framework, then it can work. But it needs that combination of that for it to work. So it's not a for everyone type thing, but it's certainly a lot more than what it has been.
Certain roles lend themselves to remote work a lot better than others as well.
But that number of roles has expanded, surely. We've discovered that more roles can work from home, and that it is keeping management on its toes. It is, and keeping staff on their toes, because it's all about performance. It's all about keeping in touch and keeping people together.
It definitely requires a specific management style, I think, to be able to maintain and sort of manage. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've had one of our senior managers who's always remote managed. So our head of sales is actually based in Darwin, but all of his staff are based in Victoria. And so he's been very good at that remote management, whereas some of the other leadership team members, it's really tested them to have the majority of their team work from home and cause them a great deal of stress, I think, actually during that process, because they're just so used to being able to walk up behind someone and, oh, can you look at this for me, or can you do that? It changes the way that you operate as a manager.
100%.
Yeah, and the way you tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, can you help me out with such and such, has to work differently, because you can't actually physically tap anybody on the shoulder. Yeah. Okay then, so let's jump on. If there's no other questions that we need to jump to, we'll move to the last part, which was about security. So Nick, throw up the questions. Another issue that people have raised was that with all the extra time at home, the so-called script kiddies have been out in force. And of course, last week we also heard that there have been sustained attacks on government enterprises. I thought we had noticed an uptick in phishing exercises and phishing attacks, but I'm not sure that we have really seen huge changes. Did you notice any extra security issues, and what did you do to mitigate them? So who wants to go first?
I think the security issues that we've seen have been more internal IT type issues, where trying to secure devices that we don't necessarily actually own, helping people who are working from home with their own devices. That's been, so
it's the BYOD issue.
That for us, that's been the real issue.
Yeah.
The more recent security issues that have been in the news, I don't think I've personally seen any sign of at all. I've certainly seen. Look,
other than if you're on the internet, you are continually under attack by a wide range of things that you may not be able to characterize as a state organised thing or anything else. But, you know, script kiddies are all out there, and that's a thing. That and we really don't. It's not visible unless you're running the individual servers to see when attacks are coming in. And so we don't. I don't see it in the network side as much. We don't. Certainly DDoS is where my focus.
Yeah, we saw a couple of big DDoS attacks.
There's been a few big DDoS, but nothing crazy, nothing out of the ordinary.
Nothing Olympic scale.
No, well, yeah, so yeah, well, Brazil soccer one is a massive one.
The real denial services that I've been seeing have been coming from game vendors, to be honest.
Game vendors.
Yeah, well,
and their updates.
Okay, all right. So let's mention the certain duty patch, shall we say?
Call of Duty, Fortnite. Who else is there?
It seems that over the last 6 months, the size and frequency of those updates has grown dramatically, and they are being released in a manner which is extremely unfriendly.
So are those
Unfriendly
patches?
to us.
Yes.
Are those patches just extra video graphics that are in there in the packages?
I don't think they know how to, I don't think they know how to develop. They don't do a diff and compress it and send it out. They just send the entire texture pack again.
Yeah.
It
So
does
it's
seem
sloppy
like it could be done
coding.
better.
So it's because we have so much bandwidth, they think they can take it for
No,
granted. Is that
because
what it
the
is?
US has so much bandwidth, and they do it in the middle of the night, and they
Oh,
release worldwide at the same time,
That's
which
right.
happens to be our peak.
Yeah, exactly. So these software patches, which are all 90 gigabytes in size, that have to go unicast, not multicast. But
Not that that helps us last mile, because last mile's
Yeah, all right.
the bandwidth.
That's true. But they all go out in these massive chunks, all at once, at off-peak time US, which is 2 a.m. in the morning over there, which is what, 9?
Starts at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. now, so I'm through to.
Well, it's early morning Europe time,
Yeah.
but it's peak hour Australia.
Yeah.
It's 7 p.m. bang, and we're hit with how many gigs of data, and we don't like it. Okay, so Netflix were nice and went down to standard def, not high def. Could certain large software vendors, and you know who you are, hopefully you're online, just improve it? Okay, so that's
or preloading. I mean, you know, they've got the code. They can leak that out over a period of a week before they go live, before everyone has to have it. And this is not hard stuff. This is software distribution.
Preload it onto the consoles themselves before they cut over.
preload it onto the consoles. Yeah. That's a good idea, isn't it?
Who would have thought? I'm not even a software guy.
It seems there's a difference between the consoles as well. So I think that's like same game but different consoles. One vendor does sort of do that preceding or doesn't actually download the content, and if you haven't played the game recently sort of thing, whereas another vendor, it just streams down regardless of whether it's been 2 months since you played it or not sort of thing. And that's a big part of the issue.
Yeah, well, the video streamers all update content on a regular basis and drip feed that through, don't they? So why can't software? Anyway.
Yeah, the CDN side of how those patches are going out is also very problematic because it's coming through one carrier into, well, for us it comes in through IX Australia. That particular vendor didn't have enough capacity, and then it falls over onto all our transit links, and it's just an absolute frigging mess.
And then again, it falls onto, you know, IX is in Singapore and IX is in the US, and all of a sudden our international is congested.
Yeah. I'd much rather it fall onto those for our point.
Well, they are cheaper than Australian transit, that's for sure. But yeah, when it falls to Australian transit, it's troublesome.
But you throttle international
no.
inputs. Oh, well, some people do throttle international links so that they can actually taper that a bit more. Oh, no.
It's much cheaper for me to bring it through Singapore or the US than it would be to, yeah.
It certainly would be good to work with. It's certainly good to have some level of ability to communicate with these guys, you know, in a way that's meaningful.
Look, and I think NBN has managed to reach out to them, because now NBN actually knows when. The only information we have is from the NBN portal, which they know when, what game, and how big it is, and that's at least we know in advance now. It used to be a surprise.
Well, you see a tweet one day.
Well, yeah, yeah.
And then you see a big thing on graphs. Yeah. Sorry, Phil?
That's been one of the big achievements of NBN as well, has been that interaction with both the video streamers but also the gaming providers to provide that visibility through. And so that forum they've been running has been very valuable in that regard.
Okay, so that's probably something more that we should be seeing into the future. So, okay, just looking at the time, do we have any other observations we want to make on the security front? So we haven't really seen any massive change. It's just business as usual on the security front, like a lot to be aware of and a lot to be careful of. Patch your systems routinely.
So the messaging from the Prime Minister is exactly right.
Yeah,
absolutely. And we should. You know, I think we've already had that messaging for some time. It's just going public with it, I think, is a different.
It reinforced it for everybody else. Yeah. So that was a good thing to see coming through from the federal government. Okay, so Nick, have we got any questions coming through from the rest of the team? Well, in that case, I think I should close off the panel time and say thank you, David. This has been wonderful. And Brett too, fantastic contribution. And Phil, it's been really good to have you coming in from Victoria. All the very best to you folks there in Victoria. We've been seeing your numbers come in, and they're the different numbers than with the numbers we usually look at. Thank you very much. And to everybody else who participated on the stream, thank you so much for participating. If you want to hang on now, we'll have a bit more social time. So we'll upgrade you all from attendee back to, and we'll turn the recording off. We'll upgrade you all back to attendee, to panelist. And we can all have a bit of chat amongst us all here. So once again, thank you. Oh, there's lucky door prizes. Sorry, I'm not following the script properly at all. Lucky door prize. Oh,
plan. There's a plan.
The plan. Who wrote this plan? Who? Yes, right. Okay, sorry. Abby, tell me who's won the lucky door prize? We've got some air consoles to give away. I think we got 3 or we got 1. I can't read this. Somebody read it for me. Where am I up to? It's a long stream of Slack. Hello.
We've got 3.
Did you get the name I sent? Thank you.
And the names are Christian Hales,
Christian Hales, Mark Frost,
and Ryan Crouch.
Nice.
And Ryan Crouch. Congratulations, folks. We shall be sending you out, not via email, but via some snail mail, some air consoles. Congratulations. And okay, so that's the end of the, so I hope you folks on the lucky door prize that just won are still here and you have heard that you got your lucky door prize. Kitty, can you please make sure they know, ping them somehow?
We will make sure they get emailed if they're still not on the list.
Fantastic. So we'll bring everybody back to panelist mode, interaction mode, and we'll chat for a bit just openly. Thanks again, folks. I think it worked. I think it might have worked.
We had a conversation.